One of the things that graphic designers hate the most are revisions. We do not come at me with a revision. Anything past two or three, we are on the verge of getting into a fight. I'm kidding. That's stupid and extreme. But have you not felt that way before where you're just like full of rage? You're like, no. You know, I have learned that the hard way. When I first started in my graphic design career, I worked for very small but boutiques. I was never really into like the agency world. It was not authentic to who I am, and I was never attracted to it. So I always worked in little small studios, and eventually I started working for one church, and then I worked for another church, and then my husband and I started a design studio, and then we took on more work. In that design studio, I was probably 3 years out of school when we started our design studio, which is crazy. Not sure I recommend that. My husband, he is 9 years older than me, and he had way more experience. He's also a graphic designer. And so I kind of just followed his lead. I was very green. He had worked in agencies and I had not. So he had a little bit more familiarity. That's how you say it, with the environment and just what to expect. I did not know as much. I remember one of our first clients was like a charger. And Angel got this client. Back then, nobody knew who I was. So all of our clients came through Angel. But we were on a retainer with them, and they were basically launching this product. My husband, he did the brand. And in the middle of him working on this project, I jump in and I become part of the studio full time, meaning I left wherever I was at, I left that job. And here I am with my husband working in our design studio. And so we had this very simple proposal, or like retainer agreement, like a contract. And it just said the amount we would get paid and kind of like a rough overview. It was like a very vague overview of like the scope. So we would do their marketing, we would do their website. And that taught me a lot. It taught me that you really need to set expectations in the beginning. You really need to have clarity, because what ended up happening was there was a lot of scope creep, meaning we would like it was a lot of revisions, more things than we needed to know. So like, if you put in your contract, like, we're going to manage your website, what does that mean? Like, to what extent? Because when people need things, they're just going to ask you. And if the expectation is not clear, then they're just going to ask you. And it's not like that's the only thing that you can work on, especially if you're running your own studio. Well, through that process and through other experiences in the design studio, I started realizing that we needed to have our systems and be clear about our systems. It was mainly to protect ourselves from scope creep, from feeling like we undercharged, from getting into these client relationships that are like crazy. And so part of it really was expectation. In our proposals, we started adding the creative process to it. And this is something that I initially started adding it to our proposal because I needed the client to understand like the collaboration that we were about to embark on, that it wasn't just like they were asking things from me. Like, I needed their approval, I needed their attention, I needed them to review things and to understand the step, like what we were doing in the step and why we're taking the time, and then we're going to move on, type of thing. And so I started adding it to our proposal. Eventually I started realizing that this map was really a tool for all of my creative work. So then I started project managing this way. I started implementing that into our like operational systems in the studio. And so it would quickly let me know, what step of the process projects were in, if we were bottlenecked in a step, meaning we needed more resources or whatever. It gave me a lot of information. And then eventually I made my way to Vu Church. So the story kind of goes like, I was in the design studio at the same time, like Vu had been launching. Long story short, they asked me if I would like to be on staff. I said, I can't right now. Like, I have my design studio. I can't just like leave. So I did part-time for 6 months, and then eventually at the end of that year, I decided to come on full-time. And so I bring this map with me. And this is how I do my work at VOO. And what that taught me was that this map works universally, because then years pass by. I'm now back to my design studio, and VOO is still part of my life, but it's different, and so I'm with clients and consulting, and I'm bringing this up, and it works. And so what I've learned is that when you approach your work in a systemized way, you simplify a lot for you. You clarify a lot, not just for yourself, but for your clients, for your team. This actually helps me project manage. It helps me clarify expectations with investment. It helps me justify an investment, because sometimes, people come at, they want to hire you, and they're like, we want a logo. Let's say you charge $20,000 for the logo. They don't understand why you charge $20,000 for a logo when they can go on Fiverr and get it. You know what I'm saying? So this helps me justify the value that I bring to the table. You're getting a logo, you're getting a lot of experience, and you're getting a simple project. And it also helps me direct teams, because I know how to run the system on my own to myself as a designer. And so I know how to run the system with team. So you can give me any project, and I'll run a team through this thing. I'll run a team simultaneously, meaning, let's say I have 5 projects, project 1, project 2, project 3. So it helps me a great deal. I share all of that backstory with you because I'm going to be teaching this January 27th, and I want to share with you. I believe this is going to simplify your workflow. It's going to make you more efficient. It's going to lead to better creative work. It's going to lead to less revisions. You're going to enjoy the work and who you're doing it with. It's going to lead to better collaboration. It's going to help you make better decisions, understand when decisions need to get made, who should be making the decisions, because eventually you will learn what the consequences are. Once you identify what step of the process you're in, and if you get stuck in that process, like in that step, like let's say you're in, you got an approval on the mood board. I'm simplifying this. You got an approval on the mood board. You moved into step 2, which is creative exploration. And then you got stuck there on a revision loop. You're going to start sensing and identifying the issues. Oh, this person didn't understand what they approved. Oh, we didn't do a good job of clarifying the taste. We didn't do a good job of clarifying the actual true application of what we pitched. You're going to get a lot of information. So it's going to lead to better work, better decision making, all of that stuff that I just said. And overall, I think as a graphic designer, as a creative, eventually you need to adopt your frameworks. Like the best CEOs in the planet, the best business people, the best churches, the best organizations, like they have a way of working. They've adopted systems and ways of simplifying complicated things that help them be efficient. Like I'm sure, I'm talking about decisions. If you study decisions, you're going to find that different people have different ways of making decisions, or there's different ways of managing your time, because people find frameworks and they try to simplify complicated things so they can do more. And so this is one of those things. This is a simple framework, the creative process map, a simple framework that is going to help you go through a project from concept to launch in a simple way. And then you're going to be able to identify where you're at in the process, why you're there, what needs to happen. And that's very helpful for your resource allocation, your budgeting, building teams around, I don't know what your specific scenario looks like, but I'm telling you, I have run this to myself. I have run this in a graphic design S Corp business. I have run it in nonprofit organizations. I have taught it in classes. I have taught it as consultation packages that people have paid me for. And I have realized and learned that this thing works because it helps people simplify creative work, the creative process of graphic design and just any design, and it helps them run the project. with a lot of clarity. And that's all I'm about, clarity. And something that I've learned is that the more clarity you have and the more that you see that you can do things, the more your confidence grows, the more you have fun doing it, the more you have fun repeating it. You're okay repeating it. You know, if you ever get into that kind of rut and burnout, you're not having fun anymore. And so how do we stay doing this for the long game? Like, how do we keep ourselves engaged enough that we are doing project over project over project and not getting fatigued? And the map helps you with that. So I'll see you January 27th. It's $47 for 90 minutes. And this thing's going to transform the way you work. I'll see you around. Keep making beautiful things.